Hi guys, this is my instant match review of the Tottenham Hotspur 1, Manchester United 0 victory at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And as the players start to try and give each other hugs of congratulations, Matthias Tell on his haunches, he's worked hard all game. It was by no means a vintage Tottenham Hotspur performance. There was quite a lot wrong with it, but more importantly, 2 wins in a row now, a win against a team equally struggling with form and confidence, and some real signs from players who have come back from injury and from some of those players who played a lot of games that they wanted to start playing the Tottenham way a little bit more, the Ange Postecoglou way. I would still say, in terms of overalls, Tottenham look very, very lacking in rhythm, especially in the front three. Really getting ourselves in some really good positions, especially on the transition, but making bad decisions. I'd have to start maybe by saying Sonny is still just not in great form. His confidence is definitely at its lowest ebb, I think, since he's been at Spurs. But a couple of wins in a row, like I said, and Gary Neville on Sky Sports gave his player of the match to exactly the same player that I would give mine to, Jed Spence. Literally, in my opinion, on course to potentially get Tottenham's player of the season. Kulusevski obviously had an unbelievable first half of the season, but his form has dropped off a fair amount. But now, Jed Spence, I have to say, playing unbelievably, and I was saying it during the watch-along, I'll say it now. Thomas Tuchel should be thinking about putting Jed Spence in his first England squad, because he's playing out of this world football, like the best player on the park for Spurs and, well, for either team by a country mile, dropping his shoulder, beating players, beating the press by getting around people, which is something that Tottenham have not had the pace to do in their team all season. Now we see in the last few minutes of this game, we bring Wilson Odobert on the pitch, and we've got Brennan Johnson on, he came on as a sub as well, and we've got a bit of pace about us with those two and Tell in the front line. So there are pacey options for Spurs going forward, but Jed Spence, over the last few months, the only player who has been willing to be brave enough to drop a shoulder and beat a pressing opponent. And he did that all game today, endlessly, getting the ball, going in narrow, going wide, giving and getting a 1-2 from some of his teammates. He really did put in an unbelievable performance. Also, I'm going to give props to Guillermo Vicario, his first game back for Spurs, and he really did show what an elite shot stopper he is, because even though it seemed to me like really the only chances that Manchester United had were because Tottenham were kind of giving them those chances, there were saves that Vicario had to make, especially one down to his bottom right from Garnacho, and overall he did well. There's just a couple of occasions where I felt like his starting position on his line was a little too deep and he could have done some sweeper keeping a bit better. But he saved us, really. I think if we had Kinski in goal today rather than Vicario, we would have conceded one of those chances. Kinski's just not quite as elite a shot stopper as yet in his career as Vicario is. And Vicario's a bit bigger. And certainly the save from Garnacho down to his right involved him getting full stretch to his near post down to the right and a big, strong hand. They're just showing Ange Postecoglou going round the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium now. That is a huge performance for Ange Postecoglou and victory, of course. More for the victory than the performance. Like I said, 2 wins in a row, Brentford away, Manchester United at home, and before those games in the league, we really were all saying it's hard to see where Tottenham are going to get their next win in the league from. Well, we've got 2 in a row, and we go to Ipswich away next weekend. Another break all week for the players who are injured to get some more training into their legs, and maybe some more injured players to come back or get closer to coming back. I, for one, so excited to see, just in a little 5-minute cameo at the end of the game, Wilson Odobert. He beat more players for pace in 5 minutes, and of course it was a tiring Manchester United team, so caveat there, as Spurs are actually up to 12th in the league. Oh, wow. At the top of the mountain, guys, nearly at the top of the mountain, 4 points behind Brentford in 11th. But to see Wilson Odobert use some acceleration and pace to get away from players just in that little 5-minute cameo, if we can get him properly fit, if we can get him and Van der Ven and Romero and Solanke properly fit for the beginning of March and whoever we have to play in that Europa League last 16 game, and it looks like it'll be either Real Sociedad or AZ Alkmaar, then I could really see us very much potentially taking a good deep run into that. We could, I think, beat those teams, either of those teams. We've played AZ Alkmaar once before already this season, and get through to the last 8. And we've only been in the last 8 of the Europa League once over the last 10, 15 years, and we went out meekly to Sevilla, as I remember it. So that was exciting to see Odegaard. I'll go through the players. I think Pedro Porro did well. He snapped into challenges. Obviously, as always, there were occasions where he was caught ahead of the ball, and a lot of Manchester United's most dangerous work did come in our right back position and in behind him, but worked really hard. I think Porro looked like he had benefited from a break. If Udogie, interesting actually, I guess that Udogie didn't come off the bench today, so maybe he's a little further behind the likes of Johnson and Odegaard, who did come off the bench. But as and when Udogie is fit to play, I would really like to see Pedro Porro get a break. And Jed Spence come across to right back. And of course, Udogie go into that left back position. That's what I'd like to see happen. But I'd give Pedro Porro a 7 out of 10. I'm going to give Vicario an 8 out of 10. A clean sheet, obviously, on his first return back. Jed Spence, I'm giving a 9.5 out of 10. Like, fantastic performance. I've already waxed lyrical about him. Big game for Kevin Danso as well. He went off with about 5 or 10 minutes to go. I hope there was nothing, no kind of injury reason behind that. Obviously, he hasn't played a lot of games in the last few months for, I think it was Lens, who he was at in France. And he had to play all of the first 2 games for Spurs against Liverpool and Aston Villa. So hopefully that's just being a little bit careful with Danso. Archie Gray came in for him at the end. But I thought Danso was excellent. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. Put his body on the line, showed some pace in the second half, didn't let Garnacho get away from him when it looked like Garnacho would be in one-on-one. Won a lot of balls in the air and is more comfortable with the ball at his feet than I was expecting Danso to be. So it looks very much, I have to say at the moment, I've seen enough from Kevin Danso to say that I think he is and should be our third choice centre-back ahead of Dragusin. Now obviously Dragusin's going to be out for a long, long time with an ACL. It won't just be the rest of this season. I'm sure it'll be halfway into next season as well. So we're going to need to see a lot of Kevin Danso. And also, let's be realistic. We don't know what's happening long-term with Christian Romero. So very good to see how well Danso has stepped into the breach, and I was very impressed with his performance today. Ben Davies gave us just what I would describe as a classic Ben Davies performance. A strong 7.5 out of 10. His passing is so underrated. He loves playing the ball in between the lines. He's brave on the ball. Gave a good balance on the left side with Danso on the right. They were both trying brave passes in between the lines into midfield. And Ben Davies, I think we have signed him up for his extra year, haven't we? If we haven't, I definitely would. Because with Dragusin out for so long, he makes an excellent 3rd/4th choice centre-back. And I think it was the right decision. I've been saying it on my videos in the week. I would start Davies ahead of Archie Gray, and I think that was the right decision. Really good in 50-50s, works really, really hard. So that was the back line. Then in terms of midfield, Bentancur, I thought he did pretty well. Certainly in the first half, he was kind of sweeping up nicely, putting his foot in. I mentioned a little bit on the watch along how his instinct does seem to be to go a bit back and sideways, but also he has been getting a lot of stick recently, Rodrigo Bentancur, for not being that present in the midfield when teams are on the transition against us and opposition teams getting so much space to drive through the midfield. So I imagine a little bit of that instinct to be a little bit backwards probably comes from just how much stick he gets and how he wants to make sure he's always in the right position in case we lose the ball. So I don't mind it on that side. I'm going to give Bentancur maybe a 6.5, 7 out of 10. Bergvall, I thought played well in the first half, but fell away a little bit. Not a huge surprise as a youngster. I guess I'll give him a 6 out of 10. And I thought James Maddison was excellent, especially in the first half, coming to get the ball off his back four, off Bentancur, something that we've really been missing when Maddison has been out. Kulusevski never likes to come, when he plays in that 8-10 role, he never likes to come quite as deep as Maddison does to get into that quarterback role and start things for Spurs. But Maddison was really doing that, so I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I thought he did well, and obviously he got his goal, which was really good following up from the shot from Lucas Bergvall. Maybe I was being unfair giving Lucas Bergvall a 6 when he got that important left foot shot away for our goal. So let's say 6.5 for Bergvall. I'm going to go 7 or 7.5 for Maddison. And then I will say Sonny, I'm afraid, didn't have a great game in my eyes. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I'm going to have to say 5.5 for Sonny. Not a great game, lost the ball on myriad occasions. Wasn't strong enough with his back to goal. And then when he did have chances going forward on the transition, where down the years for Spurs, he's been absolutely elite with his decision-making, not to mention his finishing. Just a few times where he seemed to be doing the wrong thing, showing a bit of a lack of rhythm, a lack of confidence. And he did come off in the last 10 minutes or so. But you never don't, with Sonny, he always tries his heart out. Of course he does. So it's not that he's not trying, it's just that he's really lacking rhythm. and a bit of confidence there. Tell, I'll give a 7 on the basis that he worked his nuts off all game. Not a lot fell for him. He had a couple of shot opportunities, one saved by Anana at the near post, one towards the back end of the game, towards injury time. Didn't really get hold of it. And he looks like a player who hasn't started a lot of football matches. He's putting his all in, but he's not quite striking the ball cleanly at the moment. So these minutes will really help him. And again, another week of training this week will help Tell as well. And then Kulusevski, in terms of the starters, I'll give him probably a 6.5 out of 10 as well. Again, tried very, very hard. Not a lot coming off for him, but using his strength and his physicality a lot, which is not something Spurs are massively blessed with, and trying his hardest. Listen, the most important thing today, Tottenham got a win against Man United. We go above them. We're not the biggest laughingstock in the Premier League at the moment. That falls to the Old Trafford outfit, and I, for one, am pleased that it does. I have to say, Amorim looks like a broken man at the moment, and all of his comments coming out in press conferences about how United are a bigger club than Spurs, so the pressure's higher on him. He shouldn't be saying that stuff. I'm not a United fan, so I don't really care. It's not my place to say, but you know, you got to stay being positive, and you got to give it to Ange Postecoglou. Yes, he's been talking about the injuries, and I have to say, we did play some Ange ball today. We kept trying to play it his way. Frustratingly, at times, I felt we could have been maybe a little less naive in the second half and put our foot on the ball and let United try and come at us so that some spaces come up. But they're trying to play the right way. We saw more Ange ball today than we have in a good few months, I'd say, and a very positive result. And a positive 3 points, one that we needed, and good news for Ange. And now, as they show on Sky, some examples of the sit-in that has been called for. They've got the time for change banner out, and if you didn't know, they've asked the Change for Tottenham group have asked for fans to sit in at the Tottenham Stadium after the game to show their support for Change for Tottenham, and they just showed a bit of it. It didn't look quite as big, the sit-in in terms of numbers as the walk down Tottenham High Road did. It looked like there were 1,000 or 2,000 maybe numbers protesting on the walk down for Tottenham High Road before the game. But listen, I'm up for change for Tottenham. I don't know necessarily if it's as simple as I think we need a new owner. There is some talk of Qatar coming in, but you know, you've got to be careful what you wish for. It's very difficult. The change for Tottenham I want is for us to be patient enough where it gets to the point where Tottenham can afford to pay the kind of wages that Man City and Chelsea are. And I just don't believe, I'm afraid to say, that at the moment, only 5 years since we moved into the new ground, I don't think it's quite as simple as that yet. It took Arsenal about 13 years to spend any money whatsoever and not be selling their players after they moved into the Emirates, and even longer than that until they spent real money. So listen, I'm up for change for Tottenham, of course I am. But I don't see that many owners around the Premier League and around world football where I look at and think, oh, I wish you were there, you were my owner, because you're either an oligarch or you're a state using it for sport washing, or you're a very, very dodgy dealer indeed. Anyway, that's just my little thought on the protest. Most importantly, Tottenham get their win 1-0. James Maddison with the goal. And let's roll on to Ipswich now and try and get them back next week for the defeat they gave us at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Go there fit and raring to go, and hopefully make it 3 wins on the bounce. Cheers. Make sure you give this video a like and press subscribe, by the way.